Norse is commonly understood as Christmas time. It's not quite that simple, and we'll kind of get into the origins. Mostly with this video, I'm going to talk about what my kindred does and how we celebrate Yule and why. So firstly, there are some accounts that state what the Arch-Heathens did during Yule. I've seen, this time of year, obviously, there's a lot of questions about Yule. And I've seen on a couple of forums that other people be like, there's no written accounts. There are. It's just that they're Christian accounts, like all of our written lore. In fact, in Heimskringla, which is Snorri Sturluson, the same guy that wrote the Younger Edda, he, Christian king in Iceland, if you didn't know, he wrote about Hakon the Good. A link in the description below. Mathias Nordvig, who teaches Norse religion, and Jackson Crawford as well. They both mention him in their videos. They'll give you more of an academic, because they do it for a freaking living. In that specifically, we get some of the traditions, like horses were commonly sacrificed. Obviously, we don't do that today. One, people like horses too much, and two, they're really freaking expensive. I couldn't even imagine what that would take. Plus, you'd probably get a lot of brony protesters. And in the account, it says that it's historically 3 nights. We don't know per se how long it necessarily was. It's commonly thought to be the original 12 nights of Christmas. We don't really know the origins of that too much. The Catholics actually think that it's because of their influence. But commonly, most heathens do it sometime within the Christmas season. It's said to be around midwinter. So we do it around the solstice. In Mathias Nordvig's video, he does mention a guy who disputes that, and he says that most likely it didn't happen around the solstice, but middle of winter seems like the solstice to me. Longest night, it's kind of in the middle. It's very much a sun ritual. You're welcoming Sol, Suna, back from the darkness, especially for the Arch-Heathen ancestors, people that live further up north, like maybe if you're in Alaska, parts of Canada, parts of Scandinavia, obviously. The nights are a lot longer, even to the point where you may not see the sun until summer. So you're welcoming that sun back. For the Romans, this was Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, and they had Saturnalia. And modern Christmas is actually more of a hodgepodge of a lot of different pagan beliefs mixed in with these Christian rebrandings, because a lot of those pagan things kept being carried over. Saturnalia specifically had a lot of social norms were gotten rid of. Slaves and slave owners would eat as equals. The slaves still made the food, but sometimes the owners would provide the food. There's some testaments, I can't quote any offhand, because I have an interest in the Roman and all that stuff, but obviously that's not my major interest, so I don't devote as much time to that. But some accounts, from my understanding, have said that even the masters and slaves would completely switch roles. I believe most historians think that if that happened at all, it was rare. But you see some of that lack of social normity and this fun time of revelry during some of the coldest times of the year, when we'd huddle in masses around the fires. We got carried over into Christian times, so much so, actually, and this is hilarious, especially because of the whole modern war on Christmas kind of idea. The Puritans, who have a very heavy influence on modern Christendom today, actually tried to cancel Christmas. So that's actually pretty interesting. There's a today I found out on, I believe they were specifically talking about the Massachusetts. I'll throw that in the description below too. The Puritans were essentially anti-fun, so they thought all fun was sin. So I don't know how doesn't really sound like a strong selling point to me, but obviously they picked up some slack, right? So that's kind of some of the historical origins. Now for us, and if you follow me, I did a previous Krampus video. For us, our Yule season starts on Krampus night. Partly that's because of my personal love and interest for the Yule Lord. Really enjoy the Krampus shadow archetype. That's kind of my personal push with my kindred. I always try to have something on Krampus night, which is the 5th of December. Somebody actually corrected me in the comments, and I appreciate that they did, because it's been actually a long time since I research on this, so it's kind of going off of memory for the most part, that St. Nicholas Day is not December 4th, it is December 6th. It's the day after Krampus night, not the day before. And we don't really do a St. Nicholas Day thing in my kindred. We do Krampus night, and we get together. It's kind of a light night. This year I was trying to have us do, I try to do something to kind of pick up the momentum. It never seems to quite catch, but one of these years. But this year I tried to have a costume contest. I thought that would be fitting, because we're not going to do a full-on parade like they do in some of the German countries. And I believe there's actually some northern Midwestern states here in the U.S. that do some stuff. One of the videos I actually used, I think it was like from Indianapolis or something like that. I can't remember which state. It might have been Ohio or, I don't know, one of those flyover states. I hate being called it. So yeah, it starts with Krampus night, and we're kind of building stuff around Christmas traditions. I mean, that's what we're used to. And then obviously a lot of our Christian family members, we're going to celebrate with them as well. We may not participate in the full Christian things. Like something I'll commonly do is whenever, like my wife's family, for example, I'm very Christian, father-in-law's a pastor. I'll bow my head out of respect, but I don't say amen. I'm not closing my eyes or anything. I'm just bowing my head out of respect. And whenever everybody says amen, I usually think about Murska Hargate, but that's mostly how my brain works.
Murska Hargate Val Kilmer.
So after Krampus night, the next night is Mother's Night. This is typically a night prior to the solstice, so around 19th or 20th. Interestingly enough, and I thought this was kind of interesting, and I'm wondering, as I haven't found anything, but I'm wondering if it's a neo-pagan thing to have it on the 19th, because I believe it's called Apanalia, and if it's not, I'm going to correct it when I edit this. So Saturnalia, the Roman holiday for Saturn, who's in the Greek Kronos, his wife is named Ops. It's interesting how some of these like older names will not sound so great, and like Ops is short for like operations today. I believe her holiday was called Apanalia, and that was on the 19th. So a veneration of a female deity, and then for us, we have Dieselblot. The night of Dieselblot is disputed. Like a lot of things in the Norse, there's no concrete thing. So much is actually varying from town to town, country to country, clan to clan, house to house, hearth to hearth, right? And because of that, you get so much variation. And by that logic, it's not really a big deal if you make up your own traditions and do it your own way. Not to mention religion is an expression of self, which I think I've gone over in previous videos anyway. A lot of people get really lawyeristic. Don't let them bug you, especially in heathenry. The Disir, which is what Dieselblot is for, are the female ancestors who watch over us. You can kind of think of them as guardian spirits. So we honor them, honor goddesses. Freya, for example, has been called Vanadis. Vana for the Vanir and Dis for the Disir. So it's thought that she's one of these protective spirits for the Vanir, and possibly the head of the Valkyries, and she's got a lot of things that people kind of assign to her based on a lot that's around her. So we'll hail goddesses like Freya, Skadi, Air, who's one of the handmaids of Frigg. She's associated with healing. Just a lot of these like really important female aspects. There's a lot of male-centric archetypes and heroes, and most of the people that I've met that are into Asatru or heathenry or Norse paganism, Germanic paganism are male. So it's good to step back and venerate the sacred feminine. And also, of course, on Mother's Night, we pay tribute to the mothers in our lives. Obviously, my wife is a mother, so I might have something planned for her. So we honor the mothers, kind of another Mother's Day. An interesting thing with Apanalia is apparently Ops has another holiday that's further back in the year. I don't know when it is. It would be hilarious if it was around May. Not sure. If I find it, I'll throw it up. And then, of course, there's the solstice. We always do it on the 21st, and that's mostly so we can just kind of pinpoint the day. But the solstice varies from the 20th, 21st, or 22nd. It really just depends on the year. But that is the longest night of the year. Well, that night is when we welcome back Sol. Welcome back. We we welcome back the sun. She is coming back from the darkness to warm us. And you'll notice there's an interesting reversal in the genders, but actually most, according to what I have read anyway, most moon gods are male and most sun gods are female. Obviously in the Norse you have Sol for the sun, Mani for the moon. Egyptian, you've got Ra for the sun, Khonshu for the moon. Sometimes Thoth is also associated with the moon. It's not Khonshu, because that's from Moonlight. Khonsu, it's pronounced Khonsu. They changed it to Khonshu for the comic for some reason. Not that I'm playing too much, it's easier to Google. I'm not really sure. I think it's because of the Greco-Roman influence that most people think, and it's vastly popular with Wiccans to have a female moon and a male sun. Obviously, these are celestial bodies. You attribute and associate certain aspects to them based on your perception. We'll kind of go over that more when I actually do the archives videos, which is going to be soon, I hope. So solstice is like our big party. That's when we have, meat and mead. We invite as many people as possible, not just kin. And just have a large party. I try to do bloat early during the holidays, but for solstice, since there's so many people that aren't in our yard, I save it more toward the end. Not always the best thing to do because people are kind of sloshed. We had one solstice where a kin member decided to read poetry in Old Norse while drunk, and it took a really long time, and I saw a lot of bored faces, and his heart was in the right place, and it was awesome, reading Old Norse and whatnot, but nobody should be bored with bloat. There's joking that goes on at bloats. Nobody takes it too seriously. It's a fun, jovial thing where you're also, sharing personal things when you pass that horn around. Because a bloat isn't just about some kind of spiritual adherence. It's connecting us all through sharing, not just of mead, but also of personal experience, things that come up, things you've been thinking about. Maybe you're going to swear an oath. Yule has historically been a heavy time for oaths. Remember the heathen worldview, an oath is iron. If you break that oath, bad things. In a practical sense, your reputation is hurt. But then on the more woo fluffy bunny side of it, you may exhibit karmic consequences, essentially. And then Yule, for us, ends with the New Year. And this was fairly typical for the arch-heathens as well. I believe this is in the lore of Hack on the Good. So they would swear oaths on a pig, and then they would slaughter and eat that pig. So for us, in the more modern, because you can't always slaughter an animal, we have a couple of times, but I'll go over that in future videos, because it has to be done, of course, humanely, and the reason behind it isn't just about the blood and the visceral part. It's also about knowing where your meat comes from and how the consumption of life is a heavy thing, because that creature, had thoughts and feelings just like you do. But that's a soapbox for another day. So what we do is typically my lovely redder half will make a ham. So we're having ham, and then we burn resolutions for the new year, essentially. So those oaths historically have transformed into New Year's resolutions. As far as we know, that's where that comes from. And remember, if you swear an oath, it's not a light thing. It should be something that you can accomplish, and you should word it properly. Like one year, I oathed to be the best goathie I could be for that year. Now, I also threw in, while keeping my wife happy and my family fed, etc., because those things need to be in there too. I can't forsake those responsibilities for my oath. I need to throw that in there because obviously those responsibilities are very important. And that's basically it. For the new year, we do a bloat as well. And the bloat usually involves the burning of the resolutions, which we usually write down and throw into a bonfire. We almost always have a fire when we have a bloat. That's actually another thing that was traditional for the solstice, is having a giant bonfire. The only other thing to mention is the wild hunt, which may be part of the origin of Santa Claus. In fact, Krampus may actually be the origin of the reindeer. In some accounts, Father Christmas rides a goat, and it's believed that that goat has transformed into reindeer. So it's kind of an interesting thing there with the goat and Santa Claus kind of working in tandem as the light and the dark. It's not super clear on where the wild hunt starts. Some of the Christian accounts, I believe, have it ending around February, but this time of year is supposed to be when the wild hunt happens. So Odin and various heroes riding across the sky. So you have these dark, according to the Christian accounts, dark forces that would ride across the sky and take in any wanderers that probably didn't say their prayers or whatever. And like most things Christians hate, it's usually a good thing for pagans. So in summary, it's up to you what you do for the Yule. Yule most likely means wheel. It's the end of the year. It's when that wheel turns back. It's a time of revelry and new beginnings. It's a time to don your horns and drink from horns. It's a time to cherish your inner yard, have fun with family, even the Christian ones. Remember, most of us have Christian ancestors. In the Hemenia video that I just put out a little while ago, I mentioned my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my father, and they're all Christian. In fact, I'm pretty sure my great-grandfather was a Freemason, so that's a thing. I think both my great-grandfathers might have been Freemasons, actually. I don't know too much about their whole thing. In order to become a Freemason, you have to have a singular higher power, is the whole thing to that. And they're no different from the arch-heathen ancestry that worked, fought, and bled for me to be here, except they're closer to me now. Obviously, I knew a couple of them. The tapestry behind me is a print of the Bayou Tapestry. My mother's side of the family, the Boswells, the first Boswell, according to what I've been able to research, was actually an officer in William the Conqueror's army. William the Conqueror was a Norman, and they were famously converted to Christians. So, the Viking Norse descent, but Christian. So without those people in your line, we wouldn't be here, no matter what their beliefs are. They still fought, bled, toiled to get where we are now. So enjoy that time, enjoy the time by the fire, enjoy the time around the Christmas tree rather than the Yule tree. I think you'll notice it in the opening that my wife, me, and my son have a Yule tree in our living room. That's part of our celebration of the holidays. The tree actually might originate in Latvian paganism, but was something that the Germans had adopted, and then, according to what I've been able to research, apparently the British royal family started doing it, so everybody started doing it. So it's actually a fairly modern practice. I want to say late 1800s, actually. I mean, we can hypothesize and speculate that there are associations with like Yggdrasil, and maybe for us in the modern times, it is an aspect of Yggdrasil. It is a remembrance of the world tree that connects us all. But ultimately, according to the knowledge we have right now, it's modern. But that doesn't mean it's not a celebration of this time. Here's an interesting one though. The Santa hat is actually based off of a Norse hat. I haven't found any large floppy ones. Which is interesting, because Odin is often depicted with a large floppy hat. That actually didn't exist back in the day either, so that's kind of funny. But this is actually more historically accurate to the Norse. Not so much with the horns, but the furry part. There's actually a really decent leather one that Ravenswood Leather sells. I'll put a link to that. Kind of expensive, pretty expensive, because Ravenswood Leather, good site, really good quality. I own a bunch of their crap. I've accumulated over the years, but expensive. A few of their things aren't too bad. Like there's actually an archery glove. I think it's like $10, something like that. And give gifts. Gifting was very important to the arch-heathens. It creates social bond. It builds that relationship, especially amongst adults, and brighten up the child's day. Obviously, we shouldn't put too much emphasis on like material things and all that. Christmas can become very materialistic. In fact, that's actually one of the reasons that Santa's become so popular, is because he's been able to disconnect the materialism from the materialism. That doesn't mean you can't use it as an excuse to splurge on your nephew or niece or son or daughter. After you get to a certain age, pretty much all you have is memories. So build those memories. I mean, Yule was traditionally, like I mentioned before, the time we'd get together during the cold months and thwart off the darkness. In a lot of the sagas, that's actually the time of year when a lot of the Jotnar and the darker things would come out of the woodwork, so to speak. And that's because of the harsh cold, and that's what brings us together. I'm not going to do any into the video stuff for this one.
Skull!